That's all Frontage. Smarty says 15.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, I can't believe.
I know, and sometimes I don't get it.
It was my heart.
No.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's.
which is about 1,000 more than.
And so.
All right,
Well, yeah.
we believe we're ready to go.
I'm worried around it, but we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were different guys.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this is.
Yeah, ran down my shoulders.
So it is, like, you're getting, you think people would lose interest, they're actually getting more interest.
Got a couple of people next to us.
Ready?
Kaiser.
There, I talked to a couple who said they attend every.
All right, good evening. We are gonna go ahead and call our work session to order. It is 5:32 and in or. Myra. Roll call, please.
So Councilor Source is not here, Councilor Rodin is excused, Councilor Water,
Here.
Mayor Swartzler,
Here.
Councilor Martin Willis.
Here.
Councilor Morton here, and Councilor Ford here. Have a quorum.
All right, with that, we'll turn it over to Sarah.
Absolutely. This is all Sean all the time.
I'll move for a little bit of time. All right, well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all, tonight. Apologies for the kind of cryptic, agenda item on there. It's not quite as, it's a good first step, but I'm not sure that it's something to get super excited about yet. This is the follow-up to our conversation at the, first meeting in, July. Where we had a very quick conversation about, whether or not to, pull the pool property off of the for sale list. So I just wanted to kind of circle back, as I promised, and fill you guys in a little bit on what's going on and kind of the reasons behind that and where we're thinking things might go. So as you know, the pool property is over there across the street from the former Henry Hill Elementary School. It's nice, they got some sports fields there, a playground, pool property, and then Henry Hill Park right next to it. And then, we've done quite a bit of outreach since the pool closed around what the community would like to see happen there. And, surveying, we did some hands-on workshops and things that you attended. And really the outcome of that was a desire to see some type of kind of community recreation. Obviously people are excited about a pool, but beyond just a pool, they wanted to see some kind of a larger facility or a group of facilities that can kind of meet a community's need for kind of recreational programming, and recreation meaning not just sort of physical running around, but that can mean a lot of different things. And so from there, we did kind of a partnership building exercise. We had 3 meetings over at Henry Hill Elementary to kind of see who's interested in this concept and who has some ideas about what they do that could potentially benefit from and support that kind of an idea. And then see if we can come out of that with, kind of an idea who would be interested in working more on this. I thought that was actually a pretty successful process. We had I think we had 30, maybe even 40 different organizations that local governments represented as part of that workshop. And we came out of it with, really kind of a clear interest from, sort of the city, YMCA, the school district, and actually CSC as well, as kind of potential anchor tenants of some type of a facility. From there, I think it's fair to say that there was sort of like almost like waiting for the first domino to fall. Everybody kind of saw the interest and the importance, but it was a big lift, and there was a lot of moving parts in terms of the school district's property there, the city's property, and what could happen there. So everybody's sort of waiting to see what might happen. And it looks like, I think for lack of a better term, the first domino was kind of teetering over there. So what's going on is the YMCA has access to a bunch of field turf. The Portland Timbers soccer team of Portland, they have to replace their turf every 2 years, regardless of whether it is worn out or not. And so they donate that to different organizations to be able to put it somewhere else and utilize. So Apparently the YMCA has received a donation of the Timbers turf, which is like the highest quality. And they've also got, they believe they've got access to a funder who would be able to pay for the installation costs, for that turf. So in kind of having some conversations with them, they're looking at, it's a lot of turf, it's like we're talking about 60,000 square feet if I remember right. So they're talking about, potentially splitting it between a couple of places, looking at possibilities, but. One thing they would like to do is bring a substantial portion of that to, the Independence Falls community. So we started having conversations with them about where would potentially make sense for that. The Henry Hill area seemed like a logical place to do something like that. But, kind of in having those conversations, it's, well, you can put it in, but just bringing the field turf by itself is fine, but it'd be nice to have maybe have cover for it, so you can play in the winter time. Ideally an indoor facility, but even just a roof with no walls is better than nothing. But as you talk about that, now we're starting to get into much more significant project, potentially bigger costs, which with the donation of the turf, that's nice matching funds for grants. But the other issue is, if we pick a spot and if then we come back at a later date and have this great plan for the broader Henry Hill area, we don't want to have to tear it all up again once it's in place. And so that was kind of going around and around a little bit about kind of where it might work, but then what if and what if and what if, and we kind of kept coming back to that question. And so that was where, because we keep saying what if, well, what if we got the key partners together here and really sat down and tried to hash out a master plan for kind of the Henry Hill area. And when I say that, I'm kind of defining that as the pool property, the Henry Hill Park property, the school district property, which includes the tennis courts, and then across the street. Across the street, the whole fields and building and playground across the street. Potentially to include the Head Start facility at OCBC as well, but for now we're going to talk mostly about the school district property and the city's property. But what if we got together and really tried to make a go of this and said, okay, let's try to figure out a master plan that makes sense for the community, that meets needs, do a feasibility study about the types of uses that people would really show up for, types of facilities that would respond to that, develop some costs, develop some potential phasing, those basically create a plan for that site so that in the future, when opportunities arise, we can look at that plan and say, yes, we can meet this, or this fits in nicely in this spot in the plan. And if we put it here, then we don't have to worry about tearing it up again, 2 years, 5 years down the road, once we've, kind of moved forward with this larger idea. And of course, this turf is a nice, just kind of quick win, for lack of a better term, that we can potentially come up with this plan, and then first step is put that in, build some momentum, and maybe that can move into a capital campaign for some type of a larger project. So that's kind of where that was what sparked, the conversation, the conversation with you all, to say, well, okay, like the idea, right now we're supposed to be selling this property. And so before we move too far down this road, I want to make sure, check in with council to see if you guys are interested in us taking a pause on that sale, or listing, in order to further explore this idea. Because the nice part is this is kind of a time limited or a limited duration situation where we give us about a year. I think we can work through all of the possibilities. But at the end of that year, we will have a pretty solid idea of, yes, this is a workable plan that we want to pursue, or this just isn't going to work. We need to think of something else. And of course, obviously, we'd be keeping council in the loop as we're progressing along there. Any questions so far?
Yes,
I have lots of questions.
Questions I might actually be able to answer.
how can the turf be stored?
So it's basically rolled up and just kind of I don't know exactly. I think it's just kind of in somebody's barn, or kind of it's somewhere. And that there is a little bit of a time factor on the turf, because the longer it's stored rolled up like that,
It'd be great.
It can be deteriorate, yeah, so we don't wanna kind of sit too long, which is part of the urgency of this whole conversation.
It is, this is synthetic turf.
Yes, artificial turf, sorry, yes. Thank you for clarifying.
So. I know someone else who's looking for some turf, too, so they wanna talk about
Yeah.
We've been desperately looking for some opportunity to find some new turf, but for the purposes of this, all 60,000 feet of it were donated to this area's YMCA.
It was to the mid stabilized house, yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so it is.
Do we know how much they want to install here?
Talking about 30,000-ish, you know, I think, I'd say, and I say that, but I don't think anything is settled. Cause, you know, wherever they're looking for the other stuff, if that doesn't work out, there might be more available, there's a lot of moving parts right now.
Another question, could we get a grant to do a feasibility study on this? That's part one, and part two is can it be partitioned into different sections? So that we don't have to do the whole thing all at once.
Potentially, yes, I think, yeah, so for example, we did get a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to do that partnership building exercise. I think, since they funded that and since there was a successful outcome and it looks like we're taking the next step, I think there's a reasonably good chance of approaching them for some additional funding. I think honestly, a lot of it, the Y has been through a couple of these types of processes, both in Salem and in Silverton, and so I think they've got some expertise in running these types of processes, so I don't know how much, you know, sort of outside consulting we would actually need to hire. But yeah, our intention would be that the city is not sort of contracting anybody to do this work. In fact, the YMCA would probably be the one that would be leading this effort.
And I know that with the sports park. That we had talked about, we did a feasibility study on that and turf was part of it. Yes, but the biggest part of it was a floodplain. And I don't think Henry Hill is in a floodplain, is it?
No, it is definitely not. Other questions?
So I assume that the YMCA would be doing the upkeep on turf. Cause I've been doing a lot of research on upkeep and cost of turf because of this other turf issue. And it's not cheap.
I would say all of that is to be determined, but that would be, you know, at least from the city side, even if it was eventually to end up on, you know, the full community or Henry Hill Park. I think we'd be looking into the YMCA to be in the maintenance of it.
And our recreational immunity would cover any potential injuries on turf fields that would come non-negligence of city.
Now that our recreational immunity's been returned, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
So yeah, so that's kind of the situation where it stands today. I just, you know, one more thing that, you know, that to sort of preview what we're gonna be talking about at council. You got kind of a sample MOU and a request for Kennedy to have authority to sign that. We'll talk about that more at council, but basic idea is we want all the partners to just agree to talk. You know, agree that we're gonna try to work together on this, because if somebody's not fully committed, we'd rather just have it out in the open now and not have to worry about it. I do, you know, I mean, I wanna emphasize there's lots of unknowns at this point, you know, in terms of what the end product would be and might look like. I guess one thing I kind of wanted to ask you all is, you know, so the goal would be, or the idea would be taking the pool property and saying, hey, this is an asset that can be put in the mix for this potential plan. So first question is, are we also including Henry Hill Park? Because I know you all were very concerned about not selling Henry Hill Park, and that would be kind of a detriment to the neighborhood. So just kind of wanted to see what your interest was in sort of saying this can be a part of this. And potentially that would mean putting a building on it, or also build it.
Have we ever had any kind of a public hearing in Henry Hill Park for the neighbors?
We, yeah, several years ago,
Yeah.
we, if you remember, there was that architect from
I do remember that, I was thinking about after the pool had to close, and I have one question on that, is the pool itself, is there still some viability? I know that the boiler is, so but the pool is the same way?
Yeah.
Okay.
The issue with the pool is even if we could find the boiler maintenance, we maybe find some, but those pipes go under the cement. And they are so old that a new boiler would blow those pipes completely, and so we have to dig up all the cement, redo everything, and it's cost prohibitive. That's the real problem.
We have a flood from the ground up. Well, I certainly like the idea of partnership. And I like the idea that our contribution as a city is a pretty substantial in-kind contribution. And as long as the neighborhood and the citizens of the city have a voice in all the steps on this, I can't see any real downside to it.
Well, I know that, having raised my kids in that area, we're right over on 7. I mean, they spent their childhoods over at Henry Hall Park and the pool and with kids over in these neighborhoods, and I would love to see us reinvest in that area.
Yeah, I echo that, I think it's such a great amenity for our community and it's worth exploring. Further to see what all the opportunities could be, I know we're well aware of the financial difficulties that we're, facing, and I think we have legitimate concerns about the upkeep. That's where Source brought up and how that work in the maintenance, but looking at the long-term vision for this community, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, it just feels like that's such an opportunity site to be looking at and a really great way for the different partners to come together and showcase what can be done for that area, so I'm in support.
I agree with,
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that this is not our only option, and so, because this park is not our only option, I don't see any reason that we shouldn't just take a breath. And, pause and just, explore other opportunities that are out there.
I agree with Councilor Willis's request to continue looking at investing in that property, go with someone else's money.
yes,
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive of taking a look, but I think we really need to communicate to our community that we're not leading this effort and that we're a partner in this effort, because I could see a real potential for some confusion and miscommunication about, hey, we're in severe budget issues, talking about closing critical services, but we're going to spend all this money looking at building a community center. So I just want us to be really mindful of that balance and make sure that we're really working with our community partners and our communications team to really clearly communicate what the expectations of the city and city staff. Thank you.
And I think on that note, I've received several comments from people that, we heard you're selling the park and selling Henry Hill, and so echoing what Councilor Source was saying, I think we need to be very mindful of the messaging, and that this is an opportunity, we want the highest and best use for these sites, and it doesn't mean that we won't sell maybe some other parcels that are identified on that list, but giving a pause and letting us look at what all the opportunities are, I think would be good, but yes, being very mindful about this message out to people.
and I think along with that, to stress that this is a long-term vision. This is a future visioning, not we're breaking ground tomorrow.
Yeah, although to Councilor Sorensen's point about maintenance, that is the kind of thing we're looking to sort out over this next year. It's not simply like, oh, well, what is our pie in the sky, facility that can do all the things. Like, we actually also hope to come out of this and say, well, this is the organization that's actually gonna run the place. This is who's gonna be responsible for maintenance of this part and that part, and really have a solid idea of who's willing and able to handle what aspect of the, not just the development and construction, but the operation and the maintenance of it as well.
Well, thank you. I, just wanna give, you know, our city staff's kudos of thinking ahead and not being stuck in this kind of scarcity. Thank you. I know Western, some of the challenges that we face, because we don't have solid turf infrastructure, is we pay a lot of money to go use someone else's turfs. There's also opportunities to partner with other community organizations that bring additional revenue and have a revenue sharing contract with the live. So there are opportunities to collect revenue from some of these facilities. And so I just think it's a great idea. Thank you for being mindful of strategic investments like we talked about in the budget. So thank you.
So just so I'm clear, in terms of Henry Hill Parks, the pool property, we're definitely considering that an asset. Sounds like Henry Hill as well, you concur, is worth also including in the mix in terms of, you know, potential space that could be utilized with this. Okay, yeah, and we, you know, we have done a fair bit of outreach, both in the parks planning process and then specifically around the Henry Hill area. And that is what we heard from the neighbors, is they really miss when Henry Hill was that sort of focal point of the neighborhood, the part of the neighborhood that everything revolved around, and they want to see that return. I do think that's kind of the end goal here is to try to create some kind of a hub like that again.
Alright,
That's not all I had.
that's all we have, so, council, you can adjourn the work session, take a break, and we can come back at 6:30. Don't talk about it anymore. No cupcakes. I'm so sorry.
Do we need to officially do that?
I would.
Oh,
Take a motion.
yes, agree, adjourn. Sorry.
Who made the motion?
Council Porter, made a motion, and second by Council Mark Lewis.
Council Source?
Council Lovett. Aye. Council Martinez.
Aye.
Council Gordon.
Aye.
Council Dorn.
Meeting's adjourned.
We are now unmuted live.
All right, good evening. It is Tuesday, August 12th, and I am happy to call the city council meeting to order. 6:30 p.m. Myra, can we have roll call, please?
Counselor Source,
President.
Counselor Vernon is excused, Counselor Boisvert,
Here.
Mayor Schwartz,
Here.
Counselor Martin Willis,
Here.
Counselor Martin, here, Counselor Court, I'm here.
All right, we have several meeting minutes ahead of us to approve. We can have them
Before anybody makes a motion, I need to make a correction with my error. In the minutes of July 8th, I mentioned the wall that heals. And I gave you the wrong day for the time that it is coming through the area before it gets set up at the sports park. That will be September 16th, not the 17th, when the wall is traveling. It'll be set up on the 17th and open to the public on the 18th.
I move to approve all the minutes with that correction.
We have to wait till there's not a second. Okay, cool. So I think it was the regular meeting of the 8th. We were talking about potential for real estate to go out for contract for a bid on an RFP for real estate agent for the museum. I just wanna make sure that it's reflected in the record that both Counselor Bover and I mentioned that we have spouses or ourselves or realtors and we have no intent of applying for just for the record. I wanna make sure the record reflects that, so thank you. Appreciate that.
I move to approve all three sets of minutes with the two corrections made by Council Morgan and Council Source.
Got it. So we have a motion by Councilor Core, a second by Councilor Martin Willis. Any further questions, comments? Roll call?
Counselor Court.
Yeah.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Martin Willis,
Aye.
Counselor Boisvert.
Aye.
Counselor Source.
Aye.
Thank you.
And do we have any disciplinary comments?
Yes.
Hopefully our first ever for this and.
In there. Figure that out. I can't hear her.
Hello, hello. I don't know if it's me.
I can try to promote to a panelist.
Yes, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, try talking, see if we can hear you, please.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
No, no, is it out?
It is.
Hold on.
So it's touching.
I got video of her. Let's not say it's just a video. We're checking with our IT person, if you were patients.
Or somebody.
Testing, testing.
Just we got. Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Just a small bit.
Okay, just a second, we'll let you start.
Just say when.
Well, thank you, for being here and we'd be happy to hear your visitor public comments for tonight.
Should I? Oh, go ahead.
Could you please, state your name and your address?
Yes. Hi, folks. My name is CM Hall, and I'm actually a resident of Newport, Oregon. And I'm in my 7th year serving on the Newport, Oregon City Council. And I am a graduate of Western Oregon University, and I'm in my 19th year working at Western as a staff member and adjunct instructor. My testimony tonight in the public comment period is I'm a nationally certified sign language interpreter, and I'm co-director of a federal sign language interpreting training grant that trains interpreters in a new language that deaf-blind individuals are using called ProTactile. We're actually in that training right now, and that is why I am, here at public comment coming to you from a 12-passenger van, because we are in the field today in Newport, coincidentally. But we have 25 interpreters and 21 deafblind mentors here from all over the country: New York, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Texas, California, Washington, and Louisiana. We have 7 nationally renowned deafblind educators here from Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, and Texas. And we have been here since last week in Independence, right downstairs in the conference center, at the hotel, and around the community, and we'll be here through the end of next week. And we've been holding our national deafblind interpreter trainings here at the Independence Civic Center since the pandemic. And I really just wanted to come and give public comment tonight to say the space has been incredibly welcoming and accommodating. Thank you. We had to make a pivot off campus due to COVID, and this has been a perfect example of why our community and university is a beautiful partnership for a grant project such as ours. The hospitality and welcome has been a reminder of what a small town can level up to be. Sure, there have been some customer service issues here and there, but overall, the arrangements with the space and the hotel have made access and accommodations more possible, and I just wanted to say thank you. I know what it's like to be on the public servant end, and we rarely get thanks. So I just wanted to be sure you heard it. This is such a great space. Where you are in is such a great space. So thank you also to the hotel team that manages the conference space. As this is our last in-person training in this grant cycle, it's certainly a time for us to reflect and share our gratitude. So I just wanted to be sure you hear that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. It is nice to hear the positive things, so appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye.
All right, any other public comment tonight? All right, well then we will move on to reports and presentations. Just a brief one for me. Last week, but time is going very quickly. Helped host a delegation from Wenzhou University in Taiwan, and that was led by Western Oregon University. They're interested in having central language programs, exchange programs here with Western, and as part of that, we got to showcase both the communities of Monmouth and Independence, which was a lot of fun. So they were a great group to host, and hopefully there will be positive things that come out of that for Western Oregon. A big thank you for the National Night Out. That was a lot of fun. It was great to see the communities, partners come together. Everyone had a great time and lots of hot dogs and snacks and lots of fun to be had. So if you haven't gone to one of those in the last couple of years, I definitely encourage you to go. It's really fun to just see the community come together. And then I hosted the first ever Mayor's Picnic on Sunday, and it was blazing hot. And but it was a lot of fun. It was a smaller group than we had maybe hoped for, but Really positive feedback about that, it was just really great, there was no agenda, no speeches, no anything, we just came together, people just brought snacks and shared and, Truman Price was there and sang, and, it was great, so a true picnic, and hopefully next year it won't be quite so long, so. But with that, I will pass it over to the council liaison reports. And first up, we have the library board, Councilor Bowman.
Good, Mayor. This year's record-setting summer reading program officially ends on Friday. And Friday at 3 o'clock, there will be a tea pizza party, as well as a summer carnival tomorrow at 3 p.m. And the library just would like to send a huge thank you to the programs and sponsors, the people, and businesses who donated to providing wonderful prizes that they have for Friday's event. Special thank you goes out to the Polk Master Gardeners who hosted and ran 3 different programs for us at the Inspiration Parks this summer. The book bike program has been a huge hit. They've attended the 4th of July parade, summer reading events, and community outreach events with the school district. And building off the success of the trolley story time with Miss Joe and Miss Hillary from the Monmouth Public Library, they're once again going to be doing a joint story time in September. And then lastly, the library has been approved for an education account from Experience CS, who's replacing the youth coding lead, and they're anticipating beginning in fall. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then next museum board with Councilor Morton.
And I am pleased to report that the Heritage Museum Board has been having very regular meetings and even some outreach meetings looking forward to possible future funding opportunities. I do volunteer at the museum every Thursday and I stay in touch with board members and the museum director in that endeavor as well. The museum is planning for both internal and external exhibits and making great community connections in the process. One of the latest planned exhibits will be at the office of the Monmouth Independence Chamber of Commerce. The Heritage Museum Board is deeply involved in the Wall That Heals, also coming in September. The board is a robust group, but as with many other volunteer agencies, can always use new members.
Councilor Morton, can you talk about the 360?
Excuse me?
Can you talk about the 360 online at all?
No,
Okay,
sorry.
so if I may, Mayor, just to add to what Councilor Morton was talking about, staff has been working on a program which is a 360 online of the museum. So you can actually go online and you can see our museum, and we're most of the way through with it. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible.
That was mentioned I missed the last meeting because of that darn hop festival got in the way of
Goodness.
being at a meeting. But I had heard the first of that a month ago, so I'm glad that it's nearing completion.
And next up, we have the continuum of care from Councilor Ford.
Few meetings back, Mayor Kate mentioned that we had recently opened an adult shelter in Monmouth, and I just want to let everybody know that things are going according to plan. By all accounts, it's doing great. As far as the CRC itself, there have been some funding issues, as we know from a lot of different issues that we were. Funding from the federal level has been very slow coming down. In fact, the CRC faced some issues like payroll this year. Polk County Resource Center has laid off 1 employee, there may be more. My hope through all of this is that we don't lose ground that we gained in the past year.
City Manager Lewis.
My turn, okay. Just a few updates. So on July 8th, Ms. Pierce came and talked to you about the property on 233 Main Street and opening that. We had meetings with her previously, and after that, Assistant City Manager Irvine and I had a meeting with her and the property owner's representative and came to an agreement that is working for them. It will be open certain limited times just to clear out the building and then be closed. So they figure out what they're gonna do to correct the sewer problem. So that did come to a pretty good resolution for her. and we were happy to meet with her and the owner's representative. There's been some, as you know, our condemnation for the water treatment plant came before you. The stipulated judgment was submitted to the court, but we've not yet received notice of entry of that judgment. However, we've been given authority to access the property to begin the work, so that important work will begin. There have been some questions on the utility billing donations for the library, museum, and parks. Just to confirm, we can't separate them, but they will go into a separate line item, so they'll be combined, library, museum, and parks. But it will be separate line item for revenue, am I correct? I am correct, check me.
But they have to designate how they want it split up,
It won't be split up, we don't have the opportunity.
but it's gonna go in different lines.
It's no, it's going a different line from general, just general.
Gotcha.
This mirrors the ballot issue, doesn't it? As far as they were a threesome in that. Okay.
Is that, and I'm trying to remember now. If, are we gonna then just have one checkbox? Or make that more clear on the. On the bills? Because I think, I've heard from some people that said, well, I don't wanna donate until I know if it's gonna go to the parks or museum or library. Versus one checkbox that's just saying this is gonna go support this line item.
So, excuse me, it is, there's a QR code on the bill. They scan that, it takes them to a web page and they have the option to donate to community services.
Okay.
Which is, in this case, library, museum, and parks.
And if I could add, the museum and the library both have a supporting 501c3 organization. So if a donation wanted to be aimed directly at one or the other of those institutions, it could be done there, and that is generally a tax deductible contribution.
Thank you, Counselor. Our next meeting, August 26th, is usually a work session. But because of some notice requirement timing, we will have a short council meeting for a public hearing. Then the regular work session. Something else may drop on the agenda, but we will keep it relatively light because that is supposed to be a work session meeting. Then, in speaking of council meetings, November 11th is Veterans Day. It's also the scheduled day for our council meeting. So with Civic Center is closed, we will not having a council meeting on November 11th. Okay. That is all I have. Thanks.
Unfinished business? I don't think, right? We don't have any unfinished business we need to attend to?
Nothing I'm aware of?
Very good, alright, new business. Item 7.1, public hearing, is going to be rescheduled, so I think I can just read the statement on that. The public hearing on AX 2025-02, the annexation and rezone at a portion of the 50-foot wide former rail right of way for the Inman Polson Timber Company between Corrales Road and the Southern Pacific Rail right of way has been rescheduled to August 26, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. All right. Item 7.2, another public hearing, requirement for pre-application conference.
Yep. So you got a script to read.
I sure do.
I'm sorry. Can I just clarify one thing, cause I believe you said 2025-02 was rescheduled, or agenda has that as 06 was rescheduled? Cause we're about to hear 06, correct?
This is 03, the AX, it should be 02, I think, 2025-02.
So it's, I guess the clarification for 7.1, I read off AX 2025-02. The agenda has it as.
Oh,
06, but-
I made a mistake on it.
Okay, so it is 02 for.
Yes.
item
Okay.
7.1.
Yes.
Okay.
That was like 03, and then it says 06.
Oh, three is the one he's doing now.
Okay.
Oh, two is the one that's rescheduled. Oh,
That does not exist, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And 2 + 3 doesn't equal 6, but that's okay.
Fine.
I know.
all good. All right, are we ready for the scripts?
Yep, you betcha.
This evening, we will have a public hearing on LA 2025-03 to consider a draft code change that would require a pre-allocation conference for most new development. The city council will make a final decision on the proposal based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and state of Oregon. This is a type 3 legislative procedure. At the beginning of the public hearing, staff will present a staff report that identifies the applicable substantive criteria from the city's development code, comprehensive plan, and or state of Oregon statewide planning goals. For anyone wishing to speak on the proposal, we ask that you use the speaker cards provided. When called upon to speak, you must state your name and address for the public record. Before we begin, does any counselor wish to declare an actual or a potential conflict of interest in this matter? Hearing none. We will now open the hearing. The public hearing for LA 2025-03, a draft code change that will require a pre-application conference for most new development. We will have a start report now.
Perfect, thank you. Hi there, everybody. My name is Fred Evander, and I am the city planner here at the City of Independence. I am here to present a relatively simple code change that would require a pre-application for most new development in the city. The reason for this is currently we have most big applications go through a pre-application process. At that meeting, we have our city engineer there, we have our public works director, we have myself, we have the building official, we have the fire marshal. And we all get in a room and we lay out all of the requirements that are gonna be expected of the project. So that includes things like SVC fees, right-of-way improvements that might be necessary, all of that stuff. We don't do that though for small projects. And a lot of times it's the small projects that are the more complicated projects with folks who don't necessarily know how to develop per se, trying to do the projects. And so we have really identified the fact that all people would benefit from a pre-application conference. Because there's all sorts of things that might sneak up on you during the project that we want folks to be aware of. Among those things are things like fire improvements, right? You need a hydrant. It's good to know that. Is there right way going to be need to be expanded to get a fire truck to the site? Those are potentially very costly items that would be good to address up front. Also things like SVC fees. We don't want folks to get too far down a project and then realize all of a sudden that there's a big bill that they weren't anticipating. We've seen this with a number of projects that have occurred in the city where folks sort of apply quick. They've maybe talked to one of us, but they don't have a full understanding of the scope and complexity of the project. They apply and then all of a sudden they're going down a project that has potential implications that they don't understand. So what this would do is require a pre-application for most new development. You can see the things that would not be included in there in the draft language. You can also see it on page 13 of my staff report. Basically, it's a very simple, or page 13 of your packet, I should say. And page 19 of the packet as well, so shows the language. This would be a relatively simple change, as I've said. But we think ultimately it's going to, while there's upfront costs associated with staff time, we will charge applicants to go through a pre-application process. We do that. There is a cost associated with staff time upfront, but we ultimately think that it will save us time in the long run because we can make the requirements clear upfront. So this proposal is required to be consistent with Oregon State Planning Goals, Independence Comprehensive Plan, and the Independence Development Code. I specifically looked at subchapters 10 and 11, which are applicable to this. Basically, this is a small change, completely consistent with our standards. We actually think it will help us ensure that development is consistent with our development standards. So basically it. The planning commission looked at this. And and they recommended unanimously that you folks approve this as well. Are there any questions of me?
Yes, Mr. Vander, I think this is a great idea. I understand where you're coming from. It's hard to get in the middle of something and try to backtrack. While I acknowledge that the city posted the notices in all the appropriate places and in the newspaper, what have you, these small project folks probably aren't aware of those sites or probably don't view them at any regularity. Would it be appropriate, given the wider reach of social media, to post those notices on the Facebook page?
Yes, that would completely be appropriate, and that's actually something that we started doing with the most recent, because the planning commission said the same exact thing, like, you guys are putting out a newsletter. Why don't we start putting notices of public hearings that we're having in the newsletter, so it's getting sent to all the folks that are receiving the newsletter. Based on that, we went ahead and did this in the last newsletter. I'm fairly certain, we did like 3 public hearings.
I think the newsletter is fine, but I think social media is where you're gonna find these small projects people.
Okay,
But thank you, I think it's great.
So is this going to incur an additional cost to the applicant?
it will, yes, it absolutely will. So what the planning commission did discuss is potentially a lesser fee. That is completely in your purview though, and Rob is going through finance director Moody is going through a fee schedule, cost comparison with similar jurisdictions, right now. And so what we plan to do is bring the fee schedule back, sort of unrelated to this. But with the recognition that yes, potentially this is another cost that people won't be anticipating. One thing I like to say about planning projects though, like, is dealing with planning costs is the cheapest part of the project, right? So right now our pre-application fee is $300. If you go through a pre-application fee or a process and you find out, oh, your SDC is gonna be $100,000 or something like that.
Which is not.
I mean, depending on, but we have had, I will say, no. We have had projects where we've said your SDCs will be $100,000 potentially.
But that's for a big developer, right?
That's for a higher, a larger project.
So theoretically, SDC fees in general, right,
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So SDC fees are potentially a far more expensive cost of a project compared to the $300. Also right away improvements, right? Or a fire hydrant, right? We're talking about orders of magnitude bigger the further you get into a project, and that's what I'm trying to communicate.
Foreknowledge allows for budgeting.
Right, and that's, I mean, that's what fundamentally we wanna achieve with this, is essentially put all the cards on the table and let people make an informed decision about whether they wanna proceed with their project or not.
One more thing, Fred, the group that you're talking about convening for this, several years ago, we talked about the fact that we were building these large developments and the school district was not involved. Would it be acceptable to have a representative from the school district involved in that group as well, so that they could possibly gauge additions to attendance?
I mean, potentially, some of these are gonna be smaller projects, so I don't know if their attendance would be.
But you don't include them with the large projects?
We don't, so I think large projects make good sense, yeah.
If I might, Mayor, just to Councilor Core, we do, and we can of course make this larger, but we do put the agenda on Facebook, so, you know, they do have the opportunity.
And that's, in the past, that's how the superintendent has become involved.
Right, but for developers as well, you know, the agenda that indicates we're talking about this does go out on Facebook, so they have that as well. So notice does hit social media, just in a different form.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I'm, like you said, it will help ward off problems down the road and. Paying the fee up front, I think will also help indicate who's serious about moving on that form. Any further questions? For staff?
Thanks, Mary. Do you think, so do estimate through just the amount of these pre-meetings you've gone through, that this will actually save over time and resources of the city by preparing this instead of retroactively after the fact having to have all these conversations with developers?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think without question it will save. It will save time, yeah.
Great, thank you.
One more question, would this also affect ADUs or is that under a different line?
ADUs would also be under this as well. I mean, one of the things with ADUs is what sort of improvements are gonna be necessary to accommodate that ADU. Potentially a bigger water meter, all that sort of stuff. So getting those up front so they understand the cost is exactly what we're trying to do.
All right, any further questions?
So
No.
right, one more question, your answer just made me ask.
Yeah,
So EDUs over 400 feet, right? If it's under 400 feet, it's exempt from this. That's what your regulation says.
yeah, so under 400 square feet, so most.
Building a shed that's.
If you're building a shed, you're probably fine, yeah, and so like.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure.
yeah, if you're building a shed, you're probably fine. If you're building a big shed, potentially there's some stuff that we want you to understand,
Thank you.
Now we're going to.
No more questions.
All right, we wish to hear from everyone who is interested in this proposal. Please limit your comments and questions to 3 minutes in length. Remember to state your name and address for the record. Do we have anyone providing testimony? All right, well then we will just move on. Do staff have any other things to add or to respond? Sometimes please. All right, I now declare the record and hearing closed. Right. Now we are moving on to item 7.3. Council Bill 2025-03. Okay. Requirement for a pre-application conference for most new development, also.
Yep, this would essentially create an ordinance to adopt the code change that you folks just had the public hearing about. Are there any questions?
Is it 03 or 06?
Your staff reports to the 6 everywhere. I have it up on the screen.
So we have too many stinking numbers, is what we have. I mean, so this is Council Bill 2025-06. So the Council Bill is different from the legislative and the LA, so yeah, so it's 2025-06.
So they're correct. This is correct.
This is
That's
correct. 06 is correct.
And now we know where it's.
Stay there, Rick.
You gotta give your report.
I gave my report. This would essentially adopt what you folks just.
Where you said that.
Yeah.
Insert duplicate report.
That's it.
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2025-06 in full as the text is contained in the council packet for the first time.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Core and a second by Councilor Seuss.
Yes.
Any questions? All right, roll call.
And ordinance amending the independent.
Wait, what?
Source.
Aye.
Councilor Booker. Aye. Councilor Martin.
Aye.
Councilor Moore.
I
Councilor Moore.
Aye.
Okay. An ordinance amending the Independence Development Code to require a pre-application for most new development.
I move to read the proposed ordinance Council Bill 2025-06 for the second time by title only.
Second. A motion by Councilor Core and a second by Councilor Martin Wood. Any further questions?
Counselor Ford.
Aye.
Counselor Morton.
Aye.
Counselor Martin Willis.
Aye.
Counselor Blummer.
Aye.
Counselor Sort.
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance Council Bill number 2025-06.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Morton, second by Councilor Source. Any questions? Roll call.
Counselor Source.
Aye.
Counselor Blummer.
Aye.
Counselor Martin Willis.
Aye.
Counselor Morton.
Aye.
Counselor Ford.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes and has been assigned ordinance number 1626.
All right, thank you for that. And now we will pass it over to Director Moody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's that time again. We bring before you tonight the fourth quarter financial report. As you know, we do these quarterly. The fourth quarter is April through June, based on our fiscal year. So as in previous reports, we've summarized some of the topics based on recent actions taken by the council or actions taken by the council previously in the year that are of continued interest to you, hopefully. So the public safety fee went into effect in January. We began billing in January, collections started in February. Our total billings for the 6 months amazingly are right at $480,000, approximately $80,000 a month. We are 1 month lag on those collections, so it is pretty much as expected. We will see that, or we did see that fee. The customers will see that on their July bill that I think just went out 1st of August. That fee was reduced to $70. Utility rate revenues, consistent. We try to give you a rolling 6-month look at these, and with the increase in fees or the switch to tiered water fees in January, and then with the weather or seasonal influences, we've seen an increase in the billings and an increase in accounts receivable over the last few months, very consistent with prior years. We've also seen a slight reduction in the collections percentage and the amount of accounts receivable that is current versus delinquent. Seen a slight drop in those numbers, again, very, very consistent with the seasonal influences of the last couple of years. So we watch these things for any variables in the trends year to year. And if those things happen, then we'll come up with some sort of a game plan on how to address them. The chart on the top of the next page just gives you a quick visual of what the 6-month receivable has done. And again, it's almost exactly the same chart as last year. Moving on to the next item, the independent audit of the city's financial statements for fiscal year 24. Gotta get all my fiscal years straight here. So we brought you that list of findings and a corrective action plan. I can tell you that we have resolved all of those findings except for the one dealing with the budget over expenditures, because we need to wait till the audit this year to see how we did. Looking at the June financial statements, the internal financial statements before any adjustments and before, we kind of finalize things, it looks like we might have a couple of budget over expenditures in the general fund, but again, I've got to look and make sure that there aren't any adjustments that need to be made prior to giving that stuff to the audit. We took care of most of I think it was the first 3 items. in the budget process, adjusted the way we budgeted for those things. And then the last item had to do with closing the IS Employment Fund. We have accomplished that. The debt summary is basically the same presentation as you had last quarter. It didn't change because the debt payments, the way they time out, there's just no change in that information. The fund loans between urban renewal funds and the general fund and all the other funds that are impacted are listed there for you. I did notice that I had a typo. I didn't update the loan balance at 321 or 331.25 to 630.25, but I did go back and check amounts. They're all the same. Now that we're in a new.
On the description, there's 3 lines for mine at SEC and each have a different year associated with them. Would it be possible to asterisk that and put an explanation down at the bottom of that chart? Cause I think people are gonna look at that and say there are 3 different loans, but what do they mean? I'm looking at the chart right above urban renewal agency and the fund loans.
Okay.
There's 3
Oh, I
lines
see.
FFCs.
I see, yeah.
And same thing for the FFC, the ICC.
So your question is. What?
There are 3 separate loans for MyNet FFC, each with a different year associated with it. Is there any way to explain that to residents so that they don't think that, well, we do have 3 loans with MyNet, but any kind of narrative explanation
Sure,
as to why?
yes, I can add that. Thank you for that input.
It might be reasonable to do it for the FCC, for the ICC too, that's a lot, you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And just the quick answer is many of those loans were broken up and parts of them were refunded at different times. By refunded, that's the fancy government word for refinance, like you refinance your mortgage. So, but yeah, I'll add that narrative, thank you. The MyNet, my finance, Minette, sorry, the MyNet receivable, again, just reinforcing that that amount is still on the books. We're still collecting on it, they're making payments, we are going to discuss removing that allowance in the financial statements with our auditors to make them on-site. That's really the completion of that, and I want you to know that it took less time to do that report than it did to read the title of Fred's first motion.
I just wanna make one comment, I was on the panel to select the auditor, the company that we chose, firm, and I think you were on that panel as well. And I just wanna say that, I'm very pleased with their support of their oversight, it's very easy to understand, the statements are, and when the gentleman was here presenting, it was very easy to understand.
And yet very thorough as well.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have Aldrich as our independent CPAs. In fact, we're very fortunate to have an audit firm. There's a really significant shortage of audit firms in the state of Oregon that are qualified to do municipal audits. And there are a number, I had lunch a while back with the head of the municipal audit program for the state of Oregon. And I forget, there's over 100 jurisdictions in Oregon that are behind in their audits because they simply cannot contract with an audit firm. The firms that are out there are not taking new clients because they're just simply stacked up with work.
But you're a seasoned auditor, you go back to work.
Thank you, no.
That's a short answer.
Yeah.
I'll pass that along to my wife for consideration, or then I'll give her your phone number.
Thank you for this work. I guess this is a question for city manager less answered. I really appreciate the data around public safety fee. When we get, is there a way we can share with the public. What we're getting for that investment, as in. With more more cops on the streets, are we seeing a reduction in certain livability challenges that we faced in our community, and is there a way to measure that? Because I worry that you see the increase in fees coming in and the revenue coming in. And we don't do a lot to really talk about like the outcome of those investments. And if we can find a way to capture that, I see it in the reports you send us. But I worry that that's not getting out in a really conducive way that's really easy to see to the general population.
Counselor, if we have funding for a law enforcement analyst, I would be able to do that.
Fair enough.
We could certainly do something a little higher level. I may not be able to connect the data to actual criminal activity, but we could do a higher level look at that. I don't believe that we have the staff to do that deep dive into data and analysis, but certainly a high level.
Well, can I have a follow-up? Even if it's as simple as what the Polk County Fire District does with 900 hours of volunteer time, so like. With the additional investment the community's made, we have an additional 200 hours of police time on the streets or something, whatever, like something very simple.
Right, but
That's something that's
after
really-
once we can simply share what you share with us, unless there's a reason why we can't, and you normally annotate that if we can't. So if we just share your stats from your weekly report with the public, would that be sufficient? I mean, in the short
Yeah.
term,
Yeah, I mean, some of that information is probably not as needed for the general public, but just a measurement of how many additional hours of officers we have on the streets, I think would be a really nice measurement with that increased investment. We're seeing 100 hours of additional officers on the street.
And I think that's a high enough level that we
Yeah.
have to dive, and we can certainly work on that. And I'll get my team together and we'll see what we can put out.
Also, in the future, we could we have at Western, there's a institute of public safety that might be able to do some of that high level analysis on that.
at no cost, I'm sure.
At a grant basis.
At a grant, well, yeah, like, have to is what I'm saying. I know nothing about it.
He's not obligating.
Yeah, not obligating anyone.
Thanks, Counselor, we will work on that.
All right, well, thank you for that report, very helpful. Moving on to authority to proceed with action regarding the old pool property. Sure, right.
That's me. So yeah, following up to what we discussed in the work session today. So we've been, just quick recap for anybody listening at home. So we've been looking at the pool property, the Henry Hill area with a lot of partners in the community about what would really work there. There's an idea around a kind of a larger community recreation and center hub, type of thing. What I'm requesting council is to essentially, the pool property is currently on the list of parks that are gonna be put up for sale. We've got a broker of record on board. I'd like to pull that off the list for the next year, and ask council's authority to allow city manager West to sign a memorandum of understanding with the YMCA and the school district. It doesn't commit us to specifically do anything other than really explore this idea and take the next year to really see if there's a there to put a plan together for this area, see what would make sense, really define who would be responsible for maintaining the water, building what, and come out of it at the other end with a plan or with a, this just isn't gonna work and we need to go in a different direction. The only thing I didn't mention at the work session that I should have noted is, school district has also been hearing about this, and the school board actually directed Superintendent Kavista to pursue and further investigate this as well. So they are on board with talking about it. And as I said, the MOU is really kind of an agreement to talk about it, not necessarily an agreement to spend a bunch of time on something.
So to go explore together.
Exactly.
And I have one question. I'm looking at the recommended motion here and it talks about executing a memorandum of understanding. Is that the exact memorandum of understanding? It is just a sample, correct?
What I provided is a sample that was, it probably will be substantially similar to whatever. the
But it's a
other ones
framework
are
for
being, Yeah.
And are we ready for a motion? In that case, I move to remove the old pool property from the list of properties available for sale for a period of 1 year. And authorize the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding relating to the potential reuse of this property. Based on her judgment and best interests of the community. Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Morton and a second by Counselor Martin Willis. Any further questions? Roll call.
Counselor Source.
Aye.
Counselor Waller.
Aye.
Counselor Martin Willis.
Aye.
Counselor Morton.
Aye.
Counselor Court.
I'm,
Alright. Motion passes. And next, we will hand it over to City Manager West for extension of the ad hoc board for Independence Days.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we will be asking for an extension of the ad hoc board for Independence Days. As you may recall, in May 13th, a resolution was adopted to create the ad hoc board to take a look at Independence Days and where we go. That ad hoc board has been working diligently to take a look at where we can go and what it looks like in the future. More time is needed. And that resolution did allow for an additional 3 months. So at this time, we would ask for a motion to extend that ad hoc board for that purpose.
And I'm, as chairman of that body, I would like to make a comment also. Transferring Independence Days is a very large undertaking with many elements, the first of which is to consider an agency, group, or entity to take it over. Whoever assumes it needs to have the time for their adequate due diligence.
This is an action item.
I move that the council authorize the extension of the ad hoc board for Independence Days for an additional 3 months.
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Horn, a second by Counselor Colbert. Any other questions?
Counselor Court.
Aye.
Counselor Morton.
Aye.
Counselor Martin Willis.
Aye.
Counselor Waller.
Aye.
Counselor Source.
Aye.
Alright, motion passes.
Madam Mayor, before we go to announcement, I have 2 things I'd like to discuss, if that's okay with you. This is for Mr. Vander and possibly City Manager West, this is just food for thought. The governor signed H Bill 3145 recently, and that allows for the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department to use local innovation and fast track housing program fund monies for factory built housing. I would like to discuss that possibly in a work session at a future date to see if there's anything we can leverage to support cost efficient and affordable senior housing in our community. The second thing I want to discuss, and this is a little bit lengthy, I apologize, but I think it's important. Madam Mayor, a couple of meetings ago, you know what, never mind, the person I wanted to hear this is not here. Say that for another day. Thank you.
Any other council announcements?
Just a reminder that the Wall That Heals is coming September 16 through 18. They are still looking for some folks to help out down at the sports complex there. So if you are so inclined, you can actually go to the city website. There is where it will link you to the Wall That Heals, and there's a volunteer button there, and you can add your name to the list. Your assistance would be greatly appreciated.
Saturday at the museum, they're signing people up as well.
There you go.
And then we have a hop festival coming. And that is September 20th from noon to 8 p.m. It is going to be an amalgam of former hop festivals, which means it will incorporate both the passport system of doing beer tastings around town and having an open beer garden at Riverview Park. And there will be entertainment from 4 to 8. There will be some kind of background music or something from 12 to 4. And then there will be a heritage stage that has different presentations on it. including one, if you ever had the burning desire to learn how to make arrowheads out of obsidian, this is the place to go. And there will be a youth entrepreneur area for young people to come and vend their own handmade products. I think it's about a 45-minute piece for each person who is there. I know a young person last year who made $80 and was ecstatic about it. And there will also be a kids play area, and I'm hearing things like bouncy houses and paddle tractor races.
I know winding up the summer, we have the Fiesta.
Yes, it's coming in a couple weeks.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, Thursday, at Western University Center Wyden at Rep. Salinas. We'll be hosting the Polk County Town Hall, doors open a little before, or at 4:30, I believe, town hall starts at 5. It's in the Pacific Room. If you haven't attended one of their town halls, since January 20th, they are, pretty large these days, so you get there early if you wanna see. We do have an overflow room prepared, if, a lot of people come, but, might be quite busy, so if you want to attend, I'd suggest getting there.
all right, any other further announcements? Just otherwise, there are the management team notes, thank you for including those, and we did get miscellaneous correspondence that's in the packet from Tremont News, otherwise. Questions, comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second.
We all agree.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.